Hey everyone, welcome. So there's a few Xano tutorials out there to work with Adalo, but I found they're a little bit incomplete. So they go through this first process. I'll go through it just to show you guys, and then we'll talk about how to actually get user data, since this feature set isn't fully completed yet, and we don't know exactly when it will be. So here, getting started. First of all, I've set up my Xano database already, just some of the basics. So I have some endpoints here. I've created a few databases, items, orders, and user. And so since we're doing user authentication, the first thing we're going to need, if we take a look over here, is login setup. So we're going to need that login endpoint over here. So we'll just copy that and paste it in. And the method is going to be, pretty sure, get. No, it is post for the login. So we'll grab that, and I don't believe we need anything else for it. Of course, that's silly. We definitely need something for it. We're going to need, let's take a look. When we go to click on this endpoint, we have email and we have password. Now the lowercase is really important. So let's just get those set up. Email. Now we're going to use an example value, but this has to be a real value. So a value that's actually in the database. So there's that one. And then we'll do password. And here, I'm going to make that password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because Xano, although it's not very communicative, Xano actually requires you to have an 8-digit or 8-character password. And I realize I created my user here, but I never actually created my password. So let's do that. Now it's saved. Okay, so that's one. And then we want query parameters. So there's two ways to do it. We can do it by query parameter. We can do it here. So I'm going to have a whack at doing it this way. And if you ever want to know what that should look like, if you're not sure, then we can go to the API and we can click on this endpoint and then just go run and debug, because it's going to tell you exactly what it needs. All right. So let's just round this out. And now I have to insert my email and password. So I said capitalization was important. It's not important when you name the inputs. It is important when you send them in the body. Now that also could have been done as a query parameter, where I could have done email and then plugged it in with magic text, but I didn't, because I find this is just a little bit less compartmentalized, and so it takes fewer clicks to interact with it. So we'll hit next. And we got an error. What is that? Invalid credentials. Okay, so what happened here? Did I capitalize? Did I make an error? Let's take a look at our database. Now, Xano doesn't let you update in 2 windows, but it can be really useful to have 2 windows open so that you can toggle in between your API. Oh yeah, so here's the issue. I use the capital in this email. Now that's going to be a problem, right, in general. So there's a couple of ways to handle it. I believe, no, not in the settings, change type, email. Okay, so what we can do instead, because we want to just do this in lowercase, is if we take a look, we have email here. So we have precondition var user is not equal to null. And what we're doing there is we are getting the right. So first we're getting the record. We're looking for the email. So we're looking for the user whose value of the email field matches the email input. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this value here, the input email value, which is this guy that it's referring to. And we're just going to add a filter, and we're going to lowercase. So we're going to convert it to lowercase before we do the comparison. And then for this endpoint, at least, that should solve things. So now let's try again. Still an error, invalid credentials. All right, did I do that right? So again, if we, yeah, so let's see, we're getting the user, we're taking the field value of email and we're putting it to lower. Oh yes, of course. The problem is that, yeah, the problem is that I've put this in lowercase, but it actually needs to be in uppercase. And we don't know which one it's going to have to be. So the best would be if we were actually returning our result in a lowercase. Now, I don't believe we actually have the option to do that here. So what I'll do to move forward is I will just make this a lowercase over here. And what I'll do is whenever I allow the user to sign up or log in, I'll just make sure that that's a lowercase text box, and then that'll allow us to move forward. Okay, weak password detected. Please use at least one letter. All right, so Xano's not going to let me get away with that weak password. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Q. All right, that ought to work. So we'll just update this, and now we will be off to the races. Okay, perfect. So which output is the auth token? Which output is the user ID? So why don't we have a user ID here? The reason is that basically the auth token is going to be used for the user ID. So still though, we would expect Xano to return that as a default. So let's see what it is returning. It returns auth token. It should, yeah, so it's only returning that one variable. Can we extend this? I am not sure. Let's see, check password. So we could add something to this response. We could potentially look up the user, though actually it's not really going to be necessary to do that because we're always going to be able to know the user's ID based on the auth token. So now we want to do the setup sign up. And so let's do that. We're just going to go back one here. Okay, so auth sign up, we can get that endpoint and we can see what we need here. Now it's going to ask for a name, although I'm not sure if it's obligatory. So I suppose we'll find out. So let's start with this. Now we can add our, again, email, and we'll use we're going to have to add our password here. So text again, and we'll call that password. That'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Q. And I hope that will be enough. Let's take a look. When it goes to here, preconditions, so it's going to make sure that user doesn't exist. And then it's going to add a record as a user. And it is not, it might be requiring this name, so I suppose we'll find out. Now, one way to test this very quickly, as we saw before, would just be to run and debug. So let's try mitch2@test.com with our strong enough password, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Q, and run. And okay, so it does not need, it does not need that. Okay, so usually I wouldn't keep that auth token on screen. In this case, it's just a demo setup with nothing in it. So it's still pretty good practice not to do that sort of thing. So once again, we have a post and we can just make sure that, yeah, it is post. So since we do not need to pass a name, I will skip it for now. And what I can do, if you're not aware of this trick on Windows, you can use the Windows key along with the letter V, and that will bring up your paste history or your clipboard history. And so I was able to paste something that wasn't the most recent thing I had copied, and that's an incredibly useful trick. So once again, we'll run the test. Okay, an error occurred. This account is already in use. Yeah, because I attempted to sign up. So let's sign up with a new email, because when I ran that debug, it did sign me up. Perfect. So now we have the auth token. Again, we just for user ID, we don't really need anything there. Okay, and now we'd want to go next. But we can't because this isn't completed yet. So what we'll do is, I mean, basically that's it. So we've done the first basic setup. The issue is we don't actually have a user database, as you may notice. And so that is going to cause maybe just a little bit of an issue if we need to get user data. So we'll show you in the next tutorial how to handle that.